Hello there. I just wanted to give a quick update into what's currently going on with Latin for Imagination and Eyes Open, specifically with dungeon generation, sort of where the process is right now for us, and where it's going to be, and how it works, which might be interesting to anyone out there who's curious about how we're doing dungeons. So, first thing I'm going to do is make a new dungeon. So I'm going to debug and start a new instance, generate this out. That'll take a little while, and there we go. Actually, let me redo that and pull out our most recent dungeon. Oh no, that's fine. I'll show you what we've got. So we go into here, and you can see that this is the result of what we've made. So it starts out in the middle here and places these rooms around and quarters and stuff. And what that actually looks like when you load up the actual finished game is something along the lines of this. There we go. So you can see I'm walking around. I've got these rooms placed. I've got the room with a pillar in it, and the pillar actually has a little bug, so I can do going around that and seeing what happens. So how does that all work? Essentially what's happening is I have a list of rooms over here. So I've got all three of them pulled up. The sort of cross-shaped thing that we've got going on right now is not finished yet, so that's not actually in. But two base rooms just to show what's happening. And I have a tile set that these are linked to. Specifically, if I can pull it up, this one. So this is just a first row. As we get more tiles, and we do have more tiles, I'll keep adding them to this and modifying this tile set. But these are all the tiles that I have access to when I'm building a map. And the game engine knows that if it's running into any of these tiles down here, they're collidable, so you can't walk through them. So we use them to build the walls. And these are not collidable, so you can walk through them. So we use them to build the floor. And these are basically, we're using ASCII characters, and these are basically corresponding to specific tiles in the game. So if I go in and modify this and make this a bit smaller, well, let's what should we do? Let's make the pillar a little bit more narrow. We'll delete that, and we'll move this stuff up a bit. There we go. So I've modified the tile set right there for this center pillar. So if I jump into here and regenerate this dungeon, that'll take a couple of seconds, and then recompile. Now I've got to find a room with a pillar in it. There's one. Yep, you can see that this pillar has actually just gotten a bit smaller. And we could push that even smaller to the point where it was only 2 tiles. I actually kind of like this design because it allows you to see around it a little bit easier. Now you notice that we started out differently. What the game is actually doing is grabbing these rooms and then sort of intelligently placing them. So it has these lists of predefined rooms, but which room it's picking at any given moment and where it's placing it and what monsters it's including in it differs every time you play the game. And that's where we get a lot of our random generation. Stuff like the hallways, snaking around, and things like that. And that's something that we're very much still actively working on. The next step for this is to build out these room types, make more of them, build some interesting puzzles. So the thing with this is we say, okay, there's a monster right here, there's a pillar, maybe you could sneak around the pillar to get past the monster, things like that. The other thing to do is start utilizing the tile sets to make it look a little bit prettier. So you'll notice right now we've got all these question marks for the floor. They don't have to all be like that. Actually, what I'm going to do right now, just to sort of show you what's happening, is go through and sort of balance these out and add in some other tiles for color and variation. Remember, we've got all of these tiles right now, and essentially the only ones we're using are these two. And there's no need for that. We can use all of these tiles to add just slight variations for dirty floors and different types of hallways and things like that. So that's the first thing I'm going to do right now. Pull this back up and make sure that I'm still looking at it correctly. So I've got this. I want some lighter tiles as well, so I'm going to go up one more character and add some of those in. We'll make this sort of just a patch in the middle of the floor. This is a capital A. And then one more up here, and let's save that, and then regenerate the dungeon. And there we go. So now you can start to see some actual variation in these tiles. And there's obviously a lot more to play around with, but you can start to see how much it adds to have even that small, minute level of detail to say, like, okay, here's a patch in the middle of it that looks a little bit different. So the big thing to do is start fleshing that out and to keep adding those things. Let's jump down a little bit. That leads off the map. We're not going to go there right now. There's a graphical glitch that I'll need to fix. Oh, and here's one of our crossrooms. I mentioned it wasn't done yet. Basically, one of the big problems is just that it has these tiles for the ceiling incorrectly placed. Now, we could fix that right now, if you're up for it. Let's regenerate this one more time. And then load it up. And then find... Here, now we're back in the crossrooms. And you can see that it's starting to look a lot better. I still need to swap out these corners. So you can see that around this point it's going off, and down here the corner is actually correct. This is mostly, or not just mostly, this is entirely, I need to just go in and look up and say, okay, what tile is the proper corner for this? And I believe it would be the same tile as up here. So I basically just copy that down and paste it in over here. And keep on doing that. And then, again, just like the other room, it's really boring to have the same tile over and over and over again. So what you want to do is put in this level of variation and detail, and just to mix things up a bit. And what actually we can do to push things even a bit farther into the more realistic realm is to duplicate this room. So let me go into here and grab the original base.txt. What I'm going to do is save this as base variation.txt. Now these are naming conventions that I'm still working out, and eventually this will be a much more efficient process. But now we're going to go in here, and it's the same exact room, But we're just going to switch these around a bit. We're going to go a lot more heavier with the clean tiles. We're going to throw in some more dirty tiles. So this room will have a lot more variation than the first one did. But the first one is still in the database. So what happens now is that when we generate the dungeon, the game is going to be pulling both of these rooms out, the base variation.txt, and if I open recent, open file, it has both of these rooms, and the only difference from them is the stylization of the floor. Now that adds a little variation and openness to the whole the whole dungeon, because you can go into rooms that are essentially the same, but they've still got that variation in dirt and grit on the floor. So let's jump into here and regenerate that. Go into base dungeon. Let's add this as a room first of all. And again, this system will be much more automated in the future. Let's tell it to grab from that room. And now let's regenerate the dungeon. And then let's test everything out. So you can see we've got one room right here. And let's see if I can find a room. We've got these cross rooms that I really need to sit down and just finish. But let's see if I can find some of these rooms right next to each other. It's going very heavy with the cross rooms right now. And that's one of the nice things about this. Right now the rooms are fairly boring, to be honest. But we'll add a lot of them, so there won't just be 3 rooms. There'll be tons and tons and tons of them. They'll all be mixed together and have little tiny puzzles built around them. Looks like it almost used entirely cross rooms for this. Yes, it did. I'm going to have to regenerate this to show you what I mean. Alright. And this is more likely to happen because right now we only have 4 rooms that we're grabbing with. And for each map, we'll have tons and tons and tons of them. Test this again. See what it comes up with this time. There we go. So you can see we've got this level of variation. And if we go down, this may be different variation. Yes, it is. So you can see one of the giveaways is we've got the 2 dirty tiles right here. And then if we walk down, we've got the 2 clean tiles right here. So it makes the maps have a bit more texture, I guess, to them, which is going to be nice. So the to-do from here is essentially to keep making rooms, to have lots and lots and lots of them of different sizes, to make the hallways a bit more interesting, and to start having some more distinguishing characteristics. It's really easy to get lost right now because there's nothing really happening in the map. So what we're going to do is go through and add bits and pieces of scenery and stuff like that, basically so that you can find your way around the level. I'll also be modifying the code a bit to essentially make it not more linear, but more straightforward, so you won't just get dropped into this row of grids and be forced to sort of navigate around this maze. On top of this, we've got some scripting that gets done about, okay, where do you place monsters on top of this? Because intelligently making the dungeons is sort of the first step, and after the dungeon is intelligently made, you place the monsters in situations to sort of maximize the experience. So you should be able to walk 4 or 5 rooms and then run into a herd of them, rather than having one every other room or something like that. Unless there are monsters where that's the case and it really does help out. So all of that will be coming in the future. As soon as I get a tiny bit more work done on this, I'm going to be condensing and compiling everything down into a version that the $35 backers can get access to. And you'll get access to this, the previous version before this, which was the one that had no random generation, and our initial prototype, which we made during the Game Jam, which was a little while ago, actually. So you'll be able to really see how the game evolves. And that'll probably be set up either tonight or tomorrow. So if you are a $35 backer, definitely look forward to that. If you're not a $35 backer, we're getting really close to the $3,500 range. And at that point, regardless of what level you've backed at, you'll get access to our current demo. So look forward to that as well. Pretty soon we'll be releasing this stuff on YouTube as well. As soon as we have a version that we feel captures some of the actual feeling of what we want for the final game, we'll give it to people to give their first impressions of and stuff like that. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that was interesting to you, and just a general update.